side down so that they are right sides together. And then I'm going to sew the shoulders.
So you're just sewing straight with the serger?
Just straight with the serger. You don't use the straight stitch at all on this project. You'll find I actually rarely pin as well on this project. There's about only one spot that I pin. At this point, I can do the collar, okay? Or I can do the sleeves. It doesn't really matter. You can do the sleeves first, the collar first, whatever. If you do the sleeves, then when you do the collar, you'll end up with a lot more mass to work with while you're dealing with the collar. So you might want to do the collar. So with it right side out, find your left shoulder, and I just like to put a pin, a 1/2 inch back. Doesn't have to be exactly 1/2 inch, just 1/2 inch-ish back from that, okay? And now I'm going to grab my collar, and I'm going to fold my collar right sides together, hamburger side instead of, you know, hot dog hamburger, so the short side, right? And I'm going to sew this short dimension here, right sides together. Once I have that, I'm going to take it, you'll have a little loop, right, like that. And you're going to go to the seam allowance, and you're going to send one direction and the other direction, so that when you fold it in half to enclose it, when you look down the middle, it disperses that bulk one way and the other way, so it's not all sitting on top of each other. Does that make sense? So I'm going to take a pin and just pin that into place, okay? And then I'm going to let the rest of it fold in half, and it ends up folding together wrong sides together, so that everything about the wrong side is enclosed. And I'm going to pinch at my pin, and I'm going to find the halfway point over here, okay? And I'm going to put a pin in the halfway point, okay? I've got a pin at halfway, okay? Now what I need to do is come to my shirt. That can be wrong side out this time, so right side, inside out. I'm going to find the pin, and I need to find halfway around the neckline. This is why we didn't notch it, because it's kind of this weird arbitrary point somewhere over here that ends up on the front, okay? So just pinch your pin and then line up the edges and just walk your way across the shirt until you find the halfway point right there, okay? And then right sides together, I'm going to match up the seam line of my collar with the pin that's a 1/2 inch back from the left shoulder seam. I am going to pin it into place. And then I'm going to find, whoop, go through all 4 layers. Then I'm going to find the halfway point of both of them. And I'm going to take these pins, and I'm going to pin all of this together. So notice how the shirt is kind of hanging down and the collar is all the way up. I need to find the halfway points here and find a way to distribute the collar evenly throughout the whole, because remember, this is shorter than this, so somehow I need to distribute that. easy way to do that is I just take this, stretch the collar a little bit, and I lay it down on my leg, and I walk to the middle, and I put a pin in it. So now you can see, when I pull that out, it kind of distributed it throughout. So now I'll do the same thing to the other side. If you're really good, you can do this while you're sewing. I'm not gonna make you do that. Okay. So this is a good way to get it so that you distributed it evenly. If you want to put more pins in, then you can do the same thing to this little section and this little section. You can do it to every single section. I find that 4 pins is usually sufficient for me. So I'm gonna take this and bring it to the serger, and I'm gonna start sewing at my seam line of the collar, okay? Anything that we do when it's sort of an abnormal part of the shirt, we put on the left side. So if you're wearing a t-shirt and you feel right here on your t-shirt, you'll find there's a seam line on your left shoulder, on your collar. Did you find it? Yeah, it's right there. We always just stick stuff on the left side. So if there's a weird opening, put it on the left side. Something just like odd about the thing, just put it on the left side, okay? That's standard throughout the industry. So I'm gonna make sure that my needles are all the way up. And I'm gonna make sure that all 3 layers are together. And then I'm going to push the seam allowance on the shoulder towards the back. Nestle this into the machine. Take this pin out because you don't want to accidentally sew over those. Please don't, because I just changed the blades on these yesterday so that it'll cut nicely for you. Get it caught and start sewing just a little bit. And then find your next pin and stretch the collar so that you can line up the edges of the collar with the opening of the neck. And then you're just gonna go ahead and sew. You're not really trimming anything off because you've got 1/4 inch seam allowances. Once you get to the next pin, take it out, pause, find your next pin, pull, make sure that your seam allowance on the shoulder, the other shoulder, is going towards the back. Sew until you get to the next pin. Pause, reorganize. Stretch everything out a little bit. And you're not stretching, because you're stretching enough to get the collar to match up with the edge. But I don't want to stretch the neckline too much either, because I don't want it to get stretched out of shape too much. Mostly all I'm doing is making sure that I can get that collar lined up nicely with the other side. Be really careful as you're doing this that you don't trim too much off and you don't wobble at all, because this is right up next to the neckline. So if it's suddenly 1/2 inch and then suddenly your collar's 1/4 inch and then suddenly it's a 3/8, like, people notice that because it's up right next to your face. To get it out, I'm going to sew right along the edge so that the edge of the serge is running right next to the blade, but the blade's not actually cutting anything. And I'm letting my serge overlap by 1/2 inch. Raise the needles to the top, lift the foot, do not pull it to the side. If you pull it to the side, you'll snap the needles and we'll all have issues, okay? So do not pull, just move it to the side, okay? Just bring it to the side just a little bit, lay it down, and then sew off. So then you don't have this weird sort of schwoof off the edge. Just comes off nice and even, like that, okay? So the collar is done. I'm gonna do some stuff with it on that machine. If you want to, just press the heck out of it. You can press the heck out of it with it laying flat right now, and that could be done, Okay, so ta-da, collar. Okay, not too bad. That is the most difficult portion of the entire garment, is that right there. If you get through that, other than remembering how to use this machine and play nicely with it, that's the hardest part of the entire garment. Okay, I don't need my pins anymore. So now we're gonna go to our sleeves. I'm gonna lay the shirt down, right side up. And then you're gonna find the corresponding sleeve. That is not it, it is this one. I'm gonna line up the edge. Notice I'm not pinning. You can pin if you want to, feel free to pin. But this is why we have notches. I'm gonna line up that corner. Just get it caught in the machine. That's all I did. Let's get it caught. And now I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna line up my notch. And now that my notch is lined up, I'm gonna sew to my notch. And I'm gonna pause, find my next notch, which is gonna line up with the shoulder seam. And I'm gonna pull the shirt a little bit, and so I can pull the sleeve cap down till it matches up with that line, okay? There's lots of just relying on the fact that I'm dealing with a stretchy fabric. It's really nice. So to that notch, pause, reorganize, find your next notches to line up. Line everything up here. And sew until I get to my next notch. Line up the end. And I have one sleeve on. Just check, make sure you don't have any tucks or anything like that. Great. Move to the other side, right side up. Right side down. Line up the first portion. Put it in the machine, just get it barely caught so that you can reorganize and line up your first notches. Pause. Line up your next notches. Because you're dealing with only 1/4 inch seam allowances, make sure you don't cut massive notches, because you only have a 1/4 inch to hide it, so only 1/8 inch notch cuts. Find the next notch. And I've got both my sleeves on. See, it goes pretty quick, right? Now what I'm going to do is it's still right sides together, and with the front up and the back down, you're going to sew the side seams. So match up the side. On one of them, I'm